For I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I have kept thy word. Thou art good and doest good. Teach me thy statutes. The proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep thy precepts with my whole heart. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. The law of thy mouth is better to me than thousands of gold
and silver. All right. Hello. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Good morning. Almost noon. And let's continue. Let's, I don't know. I want to go back and just read the whole thing, kind of. Or maybe I'm going to read into it. You remember we had we read the introduction and the beginning of wisdom. What's the first lesson we learned? The very first thing: God hates the murder of innocents and all such things that stem from greed of gain. Right. So let's just start reading where we're going to be studying today. I don't think we have to take in because we're shifting here. The father speaks, and now in some sense it feels like that, and then the mother. Wisdom crieth without. She uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, How long, ye simple ones, will you love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit upon you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called, and ye refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear comes. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. I'll read a little more. My son, if thou wilt receive my words, and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom, and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding. If thou seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom. Out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment, and preserveth the way of his saints. Then shalt thou understand righteousness, and judgment, and equity, yea, every good path. When wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh froward things, who leave the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil, and delight in the frowardness of the wicked, whose ways are crooked, and they follow and they froward in their paths, to deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger, which flattereth with her words, which forsake the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth to death, and her paths unto the dead. None that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life, that thou mayest walk in the way of good men, and keep the paths of the righteous. For the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it. So wisdom begins to speak, and it is personified in the feminine. The wisdom is a feminine spirit. It's all right. It's just a literary device. People get caught up in the feminine and the masculine. Wisdom is portrayed as feminine, though it can also have a masculine tenor. There's men have wisdom, but the reason is, why is it portrayed as a woman? Because it is not like a man who comes in and overpowers you. It is something that calls to you gently and seductively, in a sense, in a non-sexual way. But I mean, it's using that analogy of like, there's an attractiveness to wisdom if you will stop and look and appreciate it. You know what I mean? If you will, that's the point. She's crying without. She utters her voice in the streets, in the chief place of concourse. What does that mean? You can look around you, and by observing, and if you've gotten some wisdom, even with some, if you start off with the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of knowledge, which is the fear of the Lord, and that fear is first described in terms of basically God hates the murder of innocents. It's the first sin we see after the garden, right? We see Cain kill Abel. And in one of the things Jesus said about the men who were killing him, he said, on this generation, all the righteous blood will be required. From the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Porch and the altar. And without getting into that, the idea is, when we have knowledge, what God cares about, I can look at complicated situations like the Middle East, right? Because I've been thinking about them. Like, okay, maybe I should write something about that. That would be hard. That's a hard song to write, right? Something about the Middle East that's productive and positive in a certain, well, maybe not necessarily positive, maybe just meaning truthful and declares something that's true or has a message that's true or something or meaningful. I'm just looking for something. But one of the things that I do find that is like, that wherever innocent blood is shed is sin. And the whole thing is just sin left, right, and up and down. On not on every side. Obviously, there's a lot of innocent people caught up in the middle of it. But the point is, on the leadership sides, I don't think there's an honest person in the bunch of them on any side over there. Okay? I think they're all absolutely cutthroat, ruthless, and devious. Now, everyone, I mean the Israeli, Netanyahu, okay? And I mean the Hamas people. I don't trust any of those people. But all I see is I see people, innocent people, caught up in the midst of a reprehensible situation. And I know that's good, not good. And you can start from there and try to find some wisdom about it. I mean, because it's like, I know God hates that. And it's like, and people bring him up, well, it's like, I don't know. At some point, things have to stop. I guess as I look at that, wisdom cry. I mean, there's a wisdom's out there somewhere. This is something I talked about, actually. I've talked about this a lot of times, and I never put it in terms of wisdom, but actually it makes sense to me here. I've always said how, like, ideas don't come from your brain. Not really, right? I mean, because, look, it's not like Einstein was born and somewhere lodged deep in his brain, but the idea came together there. But the idea, in a certain sense of, like, general relativity, it exists on its own. Every true idea already exists, and even bad ideas have a potential to come into being, right? I mean, the good ideas, the true ideas, are actually the truth, and of course they exist. Like the actual description of the universe, mathematically, if that's possible, exists. We just haven't discovered it, we think. Or, we presume it exists. It may not exist. There may not be a theory of everything or something like that. It may be that there's several theories of everything, meaning everything is explained by a couple of theories as opposed to one. I don't know. I mean, of course, we're just talking about the mechanistic side. I have one explanation for everything, which is God, but I'm not talking about I'm talking about explaining the mechanistic things of how things are working. That we can do by observing. And also, well, what my point is, like, by observing the world, you can happen upon ideas like, like observing the tumbling of weeds. One might think I could make a wheel or something, observing the motions of observing birds. One might like begin to speculate on how man might fly. Out in the, there's problems in the world, right? Waiting to be solved. If you go out there, use your understanding, and you think about it, you look at things, look at situations, especially when you pray about it. Like when I prayed about Israel and Palestine and stuff, I was praying about Ukraine. When you seek those things, asking it shall be given you, seeking you shall find. And wisdom is waiting for ones who will look for it. It's out there. That's why I was saying the theory of relativity was actually out somewhere, and Einstein had to find it. He had to make the observations, put that stuff into his brain, get all the ideas together so that the theory of relativity could pop out, right? Same thing with like wisdom in the biblical sense. It's like you put all the scriptures in, and then the interpretation thereof springs out, because you have to go out into the streets, into the world, not entirely literally, but go out into the scriptures and into the world, I would say, because it is not, you can't just take the Bible into a mountain and just sit there in a corner and read it. That's not what God has called us to. And I've even been not accused exactly, but it's been suggested by some, just family members, no like online controversy or anything, like that I'm a bit of a hermit, and my wife also, and our 8 children, I suppose, and all the family members that are associated with me, because I'm not particularly involved in the local social scene. Well, I'm not interested, not really. With what? People with more money than me talking about their vacations and their, I guess when I go to church, I get tired of the vanity and the wealth and just listening to people talk about this stuff. Because you know what? I don't want to sit there complaining about my problems. I don't want to sit there telling people about, sometimes I couldn't avoid it. When I was going to church, my car broke down on the way to church a couple times. And so people helped me. That was nice. But I don't like to go around and complain like, yeah, I'm barely making it, it's like, and I certainly don't want to hear about their vanity. And I just mean their empty things about, oh, did you see this last time? And we were watching that show and blah, 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 the world. I mean, if it was something important, I'd rather sit around talking about, because people will say like, oh, politics doesn't belong. And a lot of people don't like it. It's like, well, no, I think it belongs. It's very pertinent. Maybe not politics, like Republicans versus Democrats. No, definitely not that kind of politics. I'm talking about what is our country doing, and what is that right or wrong, or what should we say about it as Christians? What is this country doing, and what should we say about it? Because I always said, I do feel the call of patriotism in my heart from being born in this country, living here my whole life, and having ancestors who've lived here for centuries. I can trace my American ancestry back to the 1600s, as well as back to the 50s. I've had an immigrant and settler, like all that, and I feel very strongly about my country. But I am a servant of God's kingdom, and that's my first allegiance. And so it's not like my America, no matter what she does, love her or leave her. No. America is the country, is my people, all the people of America, including the native tribes and all that, because we all live here. And that's the country. The government is our property, and it's going a little bit astray. It's like we've got this ox, and he keeps goring people. And if we don't do something about him, pretty soon, we're all going to be held accountable for it. And that's why politics are important. Not the bickering back and forth between political parties vying for power, but what they combined do together, and the way they fail to hold the permanent bureaucracy accountable, and also to shape and to make them do what we want them to do in the will of the people, what's best for our country and the world. We always just presume that what's best. You can't have, in some sense, you can't serve both goals, right? Unless you became we failed at empire. We failed at that. There's no, I don't think there's any going back to 1995. Where we were, we could have gone forward there. Oh, well, here we are, 30 years later and almost, right? So wisdom is out in the world waiting for us to put it together, waiting for us to come and seek her out to find the wise answer. The chief places of concourse and the opening of the gates. You see what's going on? There's a wisdom to be found. She uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will you love simplicity, and scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge? Again, simplicity, there's a positive side to it, but there's also a negative side to it. And where we said oneness, not having dual purposes, just being straightforward, right? There's an evil that comes from being duplicitous. And he's not talking about duplicity versus simplicity. It's because some situations are complicated. They're not just given to simple, binary, right and wrong, good versus evil. They're not given to that. You can't just be like, oh, bad guys, good guys. That's it, simple. I don't want to think. And people they prefer not to think. That's why they interpret the Bible the way they do. They don't want to deal with subtlety. But you know what? God calls us to deal with it a bit. You can't be totally simple. I can even make it, you know what? Because I know I've taught kids for years. My kids come out, they're very well behaved. They listen to their parents. And that could easily be transferred into just a general obedience and obsequiousness. With a, I look it up. Sorry. And I don't want that. I want them to question earthly authorities. Even question, when you go to God, you can ask him questions too. I do. I question God. I don't know how else I'd find anything out. God, why this? Is that right? Is this the way? I don't question him in a disrespectful way. But I question him. I question the word, is this right? Because I might not be reading it right. Or it may be translated wrong. There's often things like that, not tons. But we got decent translations. We can trust our translations for the most part. They don't lead us that far astray. I mean, it's not like the one what they call the Devil's Bible, where it was like, "Thou shalt commit adultery." It was a misprint. We're not talking about stuff like that. That's even like, who would even fall for it? Who would even fall for that? Come on. But wisdom wants us to become a little more complex, a little more thought go into things. When the government shows you pictures of like atrocity, to be, you don't want to be so skeptical that that's your one go. Like, I don't believe anything I see because it's all propaganda. It's all a psyop. It's all this. It's all, nothing real happens. They're all actors. It's all setups. I've heard people say that about what happened in Saturday in Israel. It's all just nothing really. The Palestinians attacked, obviously, and they ran around with guns or something, but like hardly anyone died. Well, that's not true. Don't be so simplistic in your outlook. The Palestinians are the good guys. Oh, the Israelis are the good guys. There's innocent people on all sides. No one can deny that. There's innocent people on all sides. And there's some devious action going on both sides. And if you don't understand, we've been talking about the temple and the rebuilding of the temple, and the Jews really want to, not all of them though, actually only a small minority really want to bulldoze the Dome of the Rock or find some reason to get in at that Dome of the Rock and to put a temple there, which is a possibility. I've always said it's possible the Jews could do this. It's very dangerous though, and it could provoke. I would not be surprised if in the next few years that did not provoke the Antichrist rising somehow, because there's going to be such heated, intense attention on Jerusalem. Will truly become a burdensome stone with that temple there. I don't know how long that's going to go on. How we've been sitting on a powder keg for a long time, and that's like the fuse is lit, man. I don't know how once you do that, because the reason they attacked was because of Al-Aqsa Mosque. That was their stated reason for attack. They, why they were doing what they were doing. Why they did the evil they did. We justify our evil by because you did the evil to us. We justify our evil because you did the evil to us, and your evil is worse than ours. Everyone thinks the other side is worse, and I get it. And it's not the same. I get it. It's not equitable. I know. You know why? because the stronger one is able to fight more fairly and chivalrously. They can say, "Oh, everyone abandon. We're going to bomb your house." So they can say, "Everyone get out. Civilians get out," and they can look good. And they can try, and they can make very ostentatious displays of not killing or trying not to kill civilians. You know, I suppose the Palestinians perhaps have not killed all the hostages yet. I hope they didn't kill any of them. It's really terrible to do that to people, just innocent people. It's all, God hates it. You should free the hostages. They should make peace and give the I heard they all whatever. I don't want to talk about what I heard. I want to talk about what I know. But my point is about that. Like, people say, "Oh no, it's simple. It's just good versus evil." When you're looking at a picture of a guy holding a gun to a baby's head or whatever, or some similar to that, I'm not saying I saw anything like that. And there's a lot of misinformation about stuff getting floated. It's a lot of telephone game, because a lot of people I remember, like, I already sorted out the whole decapitated babies thing. A baby got its head shot off. A mother told another mother the story. That mother repeated it, and then it got turned in, and because the baby was decapitated by the bullet, most likely, it wasn't exactly described. It became a story of 40 decapitated babies, when it was 40 minors, at least, and among them, at least one baby with its head shot off. 40 dead kids in this place. And that's terrible enough. I like to know exactly what happened, though. And not be just carried along with the emotion of the image. I feel the emotion of it. It's all terrible. But it's like, I can't let that grow into like, well, then kill all of them, because that's where the spirit leads. How do you solve the problem? By attacking them again. It won't solve the problem. It'll push it down. It'll temporarily make them powerless again. You know, no doubt. But unless you're willing to commit genocide, you're just kicking the can down the road for another day. And what are you going to even more brutally oppress them? You know, Israel has to do something about this. And so, in the Palestinians, and of course, they're almost impossible to work with because they're so unreasonable. You know, and I feel bad for the innocent people there because their leadership is intractable. Because the problem's kind of intractable. You know, the Jews can't allow the Palestinians into their country. That's what I mean. I want to find the wisdom on this. Maybe you have the wisdom that they can't let them into their country because it'll become a non-majority Jewish state. And they can't kick them out because nobody wants them and they don't want to go. They want what they see as their land back. And even if it isn't their land, because a lot of those people aren't actually indigenous to Palestine, but were there because of all the immigration of the Jews spurred also immigration from the Arab world. Like Yasser Arafat was actually an Egyptian, and a lot of them. But the point is, most of these are kids now who've been born there. Only the old people even remember that. What are they going to do to those people? It's like, you know, they start off as innocent children. When you raise innocent children in such a horrible place among such brutal people, they turn into little monsters, little creatures of evil who go around butchering other kids. I mean, this is what they've been done to them. Unless you're going to say somehow racially they're more evil than other people or something. Obviously, it's the environment and what they're being raised on. And it's all very so. It's all just black and white. You know, that side is evil. That's the devil over there. And we are on the side of the angels. And everybody, you know, it's like, you got to get yourself straightened out before you start taking that position. You know? I mean, I know. Because I am on the side of the angels. Because I'm not in charge of anything. Except for my mouth. And that, too, I worry all the time that I'm not properly in charge of it. We should not. So there are, when he says, I have called, you've heard the wise thing. You've known at times, right? You've done foolish things. I've done foolish things. I know that. I'll say this. I know from experience. I have at times thought, hey, I should do this. This is the right thing. And then I did the wrong thing. And, you know, wisdom stretches, it reaches out to us. We have the capacity for it to at least to know wisdom. But no, we don't want to do that. We follow our bellies. We follow the lust of our eyes, the pride of life. All those things. We go after the fleshly desires and immediate gratification, and also the long-term security, right? Oh no, don't give your money to the poor. Save it for yourself. You'll need it later. You'll need lots of money later, because when you're old, you'll want lots of money, because you're going to be old and you're not going to have any strength. You want to sit around and just have like servants serve you with, feed you, maybe peel some grapes for you, right? I mean, I know that's not the real picture, but of course you got to take care of yourself in your old age, or have enough kids that they can do it. My dad didn't have a retirement plan. He's got Social Security and he's got his sons, and I don't resent him for not having much more than that, because he gave his all while we were raising. No one ever, even while I was raising my young family, no one did more for me. Like if he was without, it was because we didn't go without. But anyways, you've said it not all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I gotta say, I did. Wisdom is also kind of, in some ways, like I said, it's it can be neutral, because let me put it this way: there are differing kinds of wisdom, right? Like I said, there was a wisdom described in the beginning of the chapter, right here. Come, let us lie wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. See, this is duplicity. That we'll strategize and hide, and let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down to the pit. We shall find all precious substance, and we shall fill our houses with spoil. That's smart. There's an idea for you. Wow, that's easy living. Just kill other people and take their stuff. It's fast and easy. All right. Now, of course, like it says, when you were spreading a net for a bird, you're only laying a net for your own soul, from God's perspective. And that's the true wisdom. That's the wisdom of God. But there's false wisdom. And there's also just wisdom I call it neutral, in a sense. I don't know if it's neutral, but it's it's wisdom, like it says, like Jesus himself said. The children of the world are wiser in their generations than the children of light. There's a wisdom in this world which makes more sense than what I do. Okay? Meaning, like for money, like I said, it's like the wisdom of this world teaches that, yeah, you should scrimp and save and take care, and save up for your retirement and do all this, be wise and shrewd, and, I'm not saying that's entirely, I'm not saying that's not wise. That's very wise, if you're living in this world and thinking only of this world. But God thinks it's foolish. What are you saving up for? You're dying tomorrow. And all you could have done with that money, well, someone else is going to have to do something with it. Maybe they'll do something good with it. Maybe they'll just spend it all on themselves. But you're not going to see a dime of it, because you're dead. And God thinks that's foolishness. He thinks, and I've tried. I'll tell you what, I may be a fool on many counts, but as far as like hanging on too tightly to money, that ain't going to be it. I would say I have somewhat to account for not being, I do think there's a certain wisdom I could have been wiser. Just, I don't know. Sometimes in the vicissitudes and the turbulences of life, it's hard to be wise with money. And I get, like, I've had times where I meant to cancel something, but it went too long, or like I wasn't, so money got wasted unwisely. And I would have liked to have been a better custodian of what God gave me. I want to be a good custodian of what God gave me. I don't want to lose stuff. I don't want to be foolish with it. I don't want to waste it. And I've done those things. And I consider that foolish. I certainly haven't been foolish in the sense of like, laying up forever and ever and ever. Not that there's anything wrong with having emergency funds or whatever. I guess nothing wrong with it, but I mean, your lack of faith disturbs me. I find your lack of faith to be disturbing. We cannot be simple-minded. We have to be thoughtful. And when wisdom reproves, once here's the thing, the cool thing, we have God's word in us. So we should be able to discern the good wisdom, the godly wisdom, from the earthly wisdom, from the false wisdom, which may in itself have a form of wisdom. Just like it says, bodily exercise profiteth for a little while. It is a worldly wisdom. One I actually adhere to. I adhere to that worldly wisdom. It doesn't cost much to try to keep yourself healthy, and you can. And I consider it part of my responsibility. I don't think I do a great job of it. But I'm doing a job of it. I'm not ignoring that. I mean, we shouldn't ignore that. You shouldn't ignore finances either. But you have to put them in their proper place. Christ is at the center and at the top of our priorities, our families, and then our finances and other things that are less, your body. Our bodies, our finances, that's the proper order of priorities. Not my body, my finances. Oh yes, the Lord. I will give something for the Lord, I gotta remember. Send the Lord a check. He wouldn't really want your checks. That's why I don't take, I do, as I have a check burning in my pocket from my donor. I have a donor. It's all right. I'll turn you at my reproof. It's a very small check. It's okay. I'm not, there's only 2 digits, okay? Not including the cents. So I like to make it clear. I don't really, I certainly don't ask for donations, right? Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit upon you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called and you refused, I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. You have set it not all my counsel, would none of my reproof. There's a rebuke. Counsel comes to us. The wisdom. It even can rebuke us. We give reproof, like you know it's wrong. We need to submit. Because the thing is, if you don't give heed to wisdom, that what comes next is calamity. That's what I say. That's why I worry about Israel, because I feel like I know that conflict is definitely not equal on all sides. There's definitely major distortions of, one side it's like when you have a fight between, like I said, a big guy and a little guy. If it's a dire fight, like the big guy, even in a dire fight, he can, especially if he's much bigger. Let's say it's a man versus a child, okay? Let's make it really easy to understand. In order for the child to have any possible way of beating the adult, they have to break all the rules. And they're sort of forced to break all the rules. Or just sit down and be pinned down and allow yourself to be suffocated to death. And so, that's what, when someone gets you in a full rear naked, you don't really have anything except start trying to poke them in the eyes. You have to go to the stuff you're not allowed to do in casual sport and when you're playing fair. The Marquis de Salisbury rules. Yeah, I know. The Jews play by the rules. But the rules are still brutal and terrible and result in a lot of death and misery on the other side. And also there's the fact that you're keeping them in inhuman conditions. And yes, they've done it to themselves to a large degree, but they didn't do it to themselves. Their granddads did it to them. Their granddads left, their homes when the Arabs attacked. And that's what happens. That's what created the Palestinians. The Arabs warned all the Palestinians, get out of the way. We're going to push the Jews into the sea. And the Palestinians got out of the way. The Jews told them not to leave. But then when the Jews won, they said, you know what? You can't come back to your homes. Bye. And then they became the refugees, stranded in the West Bank and in Gaza. And but most of the people living there now were born long after any of that. And so what do you, yeah, I know. It's all their fault. It's all their fault. Like historically, but it's like on the other hand, it's like, well, wait a second. We picked their place where they were living to send, that's where we're going to dump the Jews that we don't want to deal with. Because Europe just tried to exterminate them all. It's very complicated. I don't know where the wisdom is in it. I'd love to know. But I know this. God hates the murder of innocents. Even if it's done unintentionally. I don't like that. Like, this kid was murdered intentionally. This kid just got ground up in the machinery of war. Who cares? It's not the same. Yeah, I get it. It's different. It is different. It's not, I don't find it less appealing, more appealing though, somehow. Yeah, I know it's a very different situation. One side is willing to do atrocities face to face. Another side's willing to do it with their eyes closed. That's all. That's not all. All right, that's not all, I would say. Because I think if the Jews really saw the atrocities that were being done, if they were really exposed to it, they'd feel, I think they'd probably be more likely to, I don't know. Because like what? To deal with the Palestinians who can't be dealt with? That's what I'm saying. I don't get it. It's the hard part. The situation is almost intractable. And on both sides you have there are extreme elements on both sides that want to ratchet up the conflict for their own reasons. And it's not entirely a foregone conclusion that Israel will win this war, especially if other Arab countries start joining in. It's like, is it guaranteed it's going to be like last time? Is it guaranteed? I sure don't want part of that. We already got too many wars going on. Did not choose the fear of the Lord. We have to choose. There are paths before us. And here's where the God's wisdom comes in, really. Because the wisdom, the most important wisdom, like where God's going to say, you choose this wisdom over any other wisdom. You know what I mean? Because there's wise path. You know, like saving your skin is a wise path sometimes. But sometimes when God's wisdom, the fear of the Lord, when the fear of the Lord, like, for example, to save my life, there was a lot of things I would be willing to do. But if God's wisdom tells me, if the fear of the Lord tells me, no. Well, like, let's say if to save my skin, it requires me to deny the Lord. I should not do that. I should be unwise in regards to my flesh. I should be unwise in regards to my mortal life and be wise in regards to the fear of the Lord. I will not deny the Lord in order to save my life. That is choosing the fear of the Lord. You know, and then that's the most extreme case. But you have to say, I will choose the fear of the Lord over choosing to please my body. I will choose the fear of the Lord over choosing to please my mind. I will choose the fear of the Lord over choosing to please my friends or my family or whoever or the government or my neighbors. I will choose the fear of the Lord over those things. That is loving knowledge. When you love knowledge, you choose the fear of the Lord. Because you know why? Because you know something extremely important. Like I said, that is the beginning of knowledge, is to know something very important. You gotta fear God in this world or you're doomed. You're doomed. You're done. You're finished. It's not going to go well with you. I'm here to tell you so. I've been empowered. I can hear it in the other. I was like, listen, it's true. Laugh at your calamity, mock when your fear cometh. Because bad things are going to happen to you. You know, you didn't listen to look at. I was watching this heart-rending scene of this Israeli girl crying about her grandmother being dead. You know why she's dead? Because your country didn't choose wisdom. And neither did the other people. They aren't choosing wisdom either. They're all choosing foolishness. Foolishness. Because there's no fear of God in what they're doing. They call on God, God. They all say God. They don't know God from the hole in the ground that they're stuffing their people into. When your destruction comes as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, oh no, it's all the other side's fault. Keep at it. Keep going. Do it your way. Have it your way. Die. It's all you're going to do. Calamity after calamity. Fear upon fear. The beginning of knowledge is to know, yeah, God's watching you, so you better well behave properly. I've read the law, what it says about oppressing strangers in your midst. I've always been pro-Israel, you know. Because historically, I think it's, well, whatever. I'm just saying, like, what? I'm pro-Israel. Solve the problem. I'm pro-Israel. I want people to live and not die. I'm pro-Palestinians. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm pro-Jew. Let me put it that way. I'm pro-Jew. I want Jew and Palestinian to live in peace. I really think the only way that's possible is with Jesus, because I don't think they're ever going to solve their problems. They're just going to kill each other. And maybe they'll get hot enough, and then the Satan will appear, and he'll make peace, and it'll all get wonderful. Yeah. Maybe that's what's coming. Speculation, not prediction. Well, partially, because we know eventually the Antichrist will appear. And since he will put himself on Mount Zion as God, the idea that he might be sorting out the Palestinian and Jew problem is not at all off the table. I mean, let me see, out of the realm of possibility, or a ridiculous thing to think. I don't want to put it as like whatever. So when your destruction comes as a whirlwind, when distressing, then they go, what happened? How did this happen? I think part of it, honestly, why were they so, whatever. I don't want to make this all about that. I wanted to make a study about Proverbs and wisdom, but it's true. It just told us to go. I'm out in the streets somewhere, in the concourses, I'm crying. If you can't tell right from wrong, like I know there's wrong and there's wrong. There's no wrong that justifies another wrong. You know what I mean? This never justifies another wrong. Now, retribution against the guilty can be justified. The guilty should be made to pay. But I don't believe in collective guilt. Though I do believe sometimes that's what happens. It's like the innocent suffer because of the guilty. We have to suffer because of their foolishness. But on some level, our government is our out of control ox running around the countryside, goring people, ripping up people's gardens. It's got mad cow, whatever, and we're not controlling it. So if we end up being held accountable for all this, what are we going to say? We didn't want it to happen that way. I was opposed to it. I was fighting it. At least I'll be able to say that. But they won't care. When the Avengers come, when the thing you fear, thankfully I fear nothing except this, that I should not know my God. That's my only fear, that I would not know him, that I would be estranged from him. And even that, I fear not, because I trust him completely. But if I had a fear, that is the thing that I would fear. I mean, I have, of course, the fear of the Lord. But you know what I'm saying? The worst thing that could happen is not for my whole family to be killed. The worst thing that could happen is for that to happen, that I don't know God. And they don't know God. That's the worst thing. So, but if you know God, the best thing that could happen has already happened. You know God. And so the best thing that could happen to you, if you have faith, has already happened. And that's amazing and wonderful. There's no fear that we should fear. But people do fear things. They fear things, and out of these fears, one of the things it says in the book of Revelation, that the fearful, the unbelieving, the abominable, the sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire. The lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Right? We cannot live in fear of other things. We must not fear them. In fact, fearing other things is the opposite of faith. Like when they were on the ship and it was tossing and turning, they were afraid. I am afraid a lot lately because of, and I know that the Lord is he's making me braver. He's making me stronger. I feel like I've been working out in the spirit. My gray hairs are multiplying. You know what I mean? It's like, because he's shown me, he's shown me I should fear nothing. He's going to be with me all the way. All the way. So I have nothing to fear. They have great cause rather to fear me. Because how should one chase 1,000? Because I will. I will chase 1,000. Because God is with me. I don't have to, that's all. Because I've got the best weapon. you know. I've got the best one. And 2 put 10,000. The power of 2 is an exponential increase. That's why there's always 2 witnesses, because the 2 of us have exponentially more power than the 1. Because where 2 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst, no doubt. Well, we don't have to go alone. He is with us always, even if we are by ourselves. I mean, in the immediate sense. If we are in the immediate sense by ourselves, we still have the power to chase 1,000. Is that not enough? You know, and if it isn't, then it's time to die. But I won't die fearful of what men might do. You know, like when I wrote that Ukraine song, I started thinking like, man, if this country goes the way they want it to go, 5-6 years from now, they're knocking on my door. I'm going to keep writing things that people aren't going to like. I don't care. I've got the sword. I'm going to sling it. I'm going to swing it. Fools hate knowledge. And the knowledge they hate is God is watching you, you son of Belial. I'm going to do a clean version of that song. It's going to be, you son of Belial. You counted in lives that lost. Yeah. Clean version. I have an explicit. I'm going to do a clean version. In case some people take offense to that. I don't think that's an offensive term, actually. I mean, it is offensive. What am I talking about? I just don't think it. I mean, what is it? It's profane. Yeah, it's profane, insulting. Shouldn't do that, Paul. Come on. But it's in the Bible. Son of Belial. What do you think that is? That's what I thought that was the modern equivalent, basically. These sons of Belial, they've taken this woman and killed her. I'm thinking of the Benjamites of Gibeah. Yeah, when we get in trouble, we call on God. We're right after it. Oh, we are on that. When trouble comes, we are on that. Oh, trouble. Time to pray. Time to pray. There's trouble. But what to do? You know, it's a bit late. Once your calamity comes, it's like the calamity's here. It's like praying. It's about talking about like, you know, it's like once you're hungover, being like, oh, you know, don't pray for God to take your hangover away. He doesn't do that. Why should he? You know? Why should he? You make your bed, you lie in it. You know, that helps with wisdom too. Though sometimes, like I said, fools refuse instruction. And I've been as much a fool as anybody, I tell you. But I've also been wise. You know? That's the thing. People are, you know, I don't aspire to be no sinner saint. I aspire only to be a saint. I don't aspire to be a fool, but only to be wise. But in the seeking of it, you know, God has not given all wisdom to me by any means. Some have called me wise. While I know wisdom and I hear it and I can speak it, but to do is not as easy as that. And I can give you a prime example is Solomon himself. Like, doesn't it say, we got into the next chapter, which we're not going to do now, but it talked about the strange woman, right? The strange woman. The other side, both spiritually and literally, of course. But literally, for Solomon, it was strange women that caused his son, that made it so that God was displeased with him enough to tell him his son would lose the kingdom. I believe that was connected. So it's been a while since I read Samuel. That's why I wanted to teach it, because I've never taught it. I've read it many times, but it's been a while. Many times, 3-4 times. Okay, maybe more. Samuel actually maybe like 5-6 times. I know by now I probably should have read through it all more frequently, but years ago I stopped reading and I only taught, and I sung, and I write songs of the Bible. So I have like this sort of deep and penetrating knowledge in like the areas that I do really know it, and then other areas I'm actually kind of average in my understanding. I confess. Okay, let's wrap it up because I got to get going right after this. They despised all my reproof. You know, I'm not going to listen. We have a conscience that tells us right from wrong. And also that tells us the wise and the unwise. Well, at least it shows us the two paths. We may not understand which one is truly wise. Because, like I said, the reason the sayings are dark sometimes as to why. It's like because people don't understand the basis of wisdom, which is the fear of the Lord. True wisdom is based on fearing God. If you don't know that, then all your wisdom is going to be perverted. Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. And that's what you make your bed, you sleep in it. That's what we say. We do not get to just do what we do. We there are consequences to our actions. That's all. There are consequences to actions. And when you despise the instruction of true wisdom, when you refuse to acknowledge the reality of God, and that one, or at least here, you don't have to actually believe God exists in reality. You have to just act as though he does exist, to fear God. And that makes you a wise person. If you're acting as though you will be held responsible for what you do, and that things such as murdering innocents doesn't matter, even if nobody knows about it, it's just plain wrong. If you understand that from an instinctive level, you have wisdom in the basis on which to gain much more knowledge in the things of, how you ought to behave in life, ethically speaking, because that is that's the wisdom that God is most interested in, is our ethical wisdom, as opposed to our financial wisdom or our construction wisdom, the wisdom to build things. God, when he came to earth, he occupied himself for a while, we presume, as carpenter, because of he was the carpenter's son. So, and the eldest. So, I mean, gosh, at that time, unless, I don't know, it's never really said, is it? We always presume he also was a carpenter. Though, I don't know, whatever. I forgot if there was some further, I know that there's the carpenter's son reference, but I forgot if there was some further reference that explained that he himself did carpentry. Because I don't believe in the Gospels he's ever and Jesus was working on a house. Okay. Yeah, I just can't recall anything like that, so. Be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them. What is turning away there? I think it means something like ensnaring. Though, what is the next one? The prosperity of fools. I'm thinking that turning away from wisdom, right? Like the simple not listening to ideas that are too complicated for them to be able to handle or whatever. There's wheels within wheels here. Wait a second. You could take that money and just save it for yourself, but also you can help this guy out who's starving, and that'll please God, and he'll bless you. That's more complicated. You could also just simply give to someone out of love. That's a beautiful kind of simplicity, but it's also, you have a potential of being taken advantage of. And that's something we ought to avoid. We ought to not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of by being unwise. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Do no harm, but also do not be so simple that you are susceptible to evil easily. Turning away, I want to look at that real quick in the Hebrew just to make sure we got the right idea. It's probably, like I said, these are probably parallel things. There's a lot of parallel when they say things, like when he says, they shall eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. This is the same basic thing said twice. The things, the devices, again, are the plans you make. I believe that was, let me see, I don't know if we got that. Let me just look at the word here. It means moetza, counsel, plan, principle, or device. The turning away is mashuba, which is turning back or apostasy. There we go. Turning back from hearing wisdom is what that indicates. You can look it up on Bible Hub yourself if you want. I just read the quick definition. I'm not going to bring it up. And the prosperity of fools, let's check that quickly. Shalva, which is quietness or ease. To live quietly and at ease. The prosperity of fools, the ease with which they dwell. They dwell at ease, not realizing, yeah, let's just have a party right next to the border of a powder keg of a bunch of people that hate our guts. And that long for our blood. And we're not, it's not getting dealt with. I don't know how to deal with it. Like I said, I will seek the wisdom. That's the problem, is people seek the wisdom. How can we get this done? Let's not slay the innocent with the guilty. Preferably. I understand. There is a difference of doing it with your eyes closed. I get it. You think you're more, like, I can't look while let's launch a missile. Hopefully no babies die. I get it. It's not the same as going in there and going, I want to kill your children because I hate you. I know. It's not the same. But I can completely comprehend how they get there. And it's not, and what you're going to do is not going to end it unless you do something terrible. And you shouldn't do something terrible like that. The Jews, above all, they must not commit genocide. They must not kill all the Palestinians. They must not do that. I don't think they're planning it by any means, but I mean, seriously, it's a dangerous situation. There's a lot of people there, and they've cut off food, water. I mean, come on. That's a lot of humanity. You say, do they all deserve it? Oh, their innocent children deserve it because their parents are evil. Is that how it goes? Let us not be simple. That's why I notice a lot. It's funny because I've never had any sympathy with Palestine, but until I started praying about it. So there you go. Blame the Lord. And not that I don't have sympathy with terrorism. I think that's absolutely. I hope I don't have to make that clear. I thought about making that clear the whole time. Killing innocents is absolutely unacceptable. Everyone who does it should be punished. And people that help them probably need to be punished. But, I'd say that people on the other side feel the same way. Okay, they feel the same way, even if it's not the same. Whoso hearkeneth me shall dwell safely and be quiet from fear of evil. You don't have to fear evil. Why? Because you hearken to wisdom. And it's like, and you know what? In life, sometimes you don't, like I said, I've tried to be wise in my lifetime, right? But my leaders not being wise. And I'll tell you what, if I'd been wise sooner, maybe I could have made a difference. I don't know. Maybe if instead of withdrawing from public life, I had decided, oh yeah, I know I'm going to keep after that one and gone into politics or whatever. I don't think so. Forget it. I'm like, I could change it. They would have changed me. That's all. You can't, you can't serve two masters. I can really only serve the Lord. Yeah. People always fear the evils that will come. As I said, the worst thing I feared has come. The worst evil, that's what they were saying a lot. They say the worst thing we feared, our fears are come upon us and all that. It's like, even if a nuclear bomb drops on my house, I'm not afraid of that. I'm like, okay, well, that's just the consequence of we couldn't rein in our leaders. Not that do I think it's likely? I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know. I have no idea. I know a lot of people are going to die in the end times, so, it's not necessarily, because why I don't mind dying like that? Because it's not the wrath of God. God's wrath isn't upon me. It's just the world is the world. That's not the worst thing that could happen to you. The worst thing that could happen to me is that I would not know the fear of the Lord. That's the worst thing. Period. Okay. We'll begin with chapter 2. Yeah, we'll begin with chapter 2 tomorrow. Oh, not tomorrow, next week. Thanks for joining me. Look forward to being back again next week to study Proverbs. I hope that was actually a sufficient study. I think so, because it's pretty straightforward. Anyways, I gotta go. I want to just sit here and talk about chapter 1 some more, but I have to go. So remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. That Jesus is the solution to the Middle East crisis, of course. Who could bring the Jews and the Christians? Well, Antichrist might. the Jews and the Palestinians together. Well, Christ will make ultimate peace. I don't know. Maybe Antichrist maybe he'll come in and kill a lot of people. I've often suspected that. You know, thou hast slain thy people, it says. Anyways, the people that love death, I hope not. Anyways, because I don't love death, even I don't even rejoice in the death of the wicked. It would, like the Lord, I would be better to see the wicked turn from their sins. And say, well, why doesn't he make them do that? Because that's not what he's there to do. He would like to see them turn from their sins, but they don't. He doesn't make them happen. He makes it happen when he wants it to happen. That's the grace and calling of God. Amen. Even so, Lord Jesus.
Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I have kept thy word. Thou art good and doest good. Teach me thy statutes. The proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep thy precepts with my whole heart. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. The law of thy mouth